This school year begins with an unprecedented reliance on remote learning amid the coronavirus pandemic. Tens of thousands of Israeli children don't have the equipment they need, according to a new report by the Israeli organization Lated. 1/5 of the students in the education system will begin the school year without a computer, without an internet connection, and without the ability to study remotely. This is mainly due to no consensus by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Benny Gantz over a budget. It also has to do with bad policy with regards to the management of the coronavirus epidemic, according to Israeli media. In fact, the so-called second wave of coronavirus is being blamed on reopening schools so early in the first place.
Once again on the rise here in Israel, there's concern over the situation in Jerusalem, with a school there now identified as a hotspot with a number of students diagnosed.
Israel is in its second lockdown, top step the rapid spread of coronavirus there this year. The last lockdown came to an end in May. Israelis believe that the regime rushed to end the lockdown because Israel's economy was showing signs of collapse. A report by Lated organization says that over 50,000 Israeli school children will start the academic year without the equipment they need. The report also added that 20% all Israeli school kids don't have a computer or the internet access required for remote learning. For hundreds of thousands of Israeli students, the schools have asked them to bring or use study materials like pencils, pens, colored pens, markers, and notebooks. Many have said that they simply don't have them. One Israeli girl told the organization that, "My friends have them," referring to school supplies, "but I don't. I always sit on the sidelines and watch my friends enjoy using what they have." The hardship has been exacerbated because there is no budget. Israel has been operating without a 2020 budget, meaning ministries must use 2019 budget numbers. 2019's budget does not cover the pandemic, even as schools and other institutions grapple with the expenses of coping with the coronavirus. The new Israeli cabinet, which was set up after a coalition deal in April, in which the only opposition joined its competitor, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and his right-wing coalition, has yet to approve a budget that includes the Education Ministry. The Education Ministry has faced criticism over concerns that the education system was unprepared for the new restrictions imposed by the pandemic.
I think that the current situation within the educational system in Israel is the result of many years of neglect and also definitely of discrimination against mainly the Arab Palestinian educational system, and generally speaking, discrimination against students and the pupils from a low socio-economic status. According to the factual background that we have so far and the statistics that we received from many civil rights NGOs and many localities, our estimation is that there are about 400,000 of students who cannot really learn these days from remote from their homes and from their houses, and this is definitely a large number. That means that hundreds of thousands of students might lose actually a full educational year if there are no immediate answers for their needs. The main problem is for these students is that either they don't have computers or laptops or any technological tools to learn from their homes, to learn remotely, or that they don't have internet infrastructure in their residential areas, so they cannot connect with their teachers and with their schools.
אז השאלה שלנו, השאלה הראשונה, האם אתה חושב שנושאי התקציב השפיעו על הישראלים ואיך?
בוודאי שנושא התקציב זה נושא מאוד חשוב ורגיש בתקופה זו, כאשר אנחנו מדברים על שנה שברוך השם היו בה הרבה אסונות, בעיקר משבר הקורונה שכולנו מכירים ושעובר על כל העולם. אין ספק שבתקופה כזו צריך תקציב מאוד, תקציב שיתייחס למשבר שאנחנו עוברים, ואי הימצאותו של תקציב מזה 9 חודשים זה דבר שמשפיע ונותן את אותותיו במובן השלילי של המילה בחברה.
השאלה השנייה, האם צריך להעביר את התקציב לדעתך ולמה?
בוודאי, תקציב היה צריך להיות מעובר מזמן. לפי דעתי, ואני לא כלכלן, אני רק אומר דעתי כבן אדם מן השורה, מה שאני לומד, התקציב, עצם העובדה שהתקציב לא עובר כבר עשה את הנזק שלו. כי מזה 9 חודשים תקציב היה צריך להיות מעובר במדינה, ובעיקר כאשר המדינה מסתמכת על תקציב 2019, כאשר האומדנים של 2019 מאוד שונים מהאומדנים שצריכים להיות מונהגים בשנת משבר כמו שנת הקורונה.
אז השאלה הראשונה שלנו, האם אתה חושב שנושאי התקציב ישפיעו על הישראלים ואיך?
אני חושב שכן, נושא התקציב הוא נושא מאוד חשוב. אם המדינה תישאר בלי תקציב, האזרחים ירגישו במצוקה ונזקים. חלוקת התקציב תהיה שרירותית ולא על פי תעדוף הצרכים של האזרחים, ולכן עדיף שכמה יותר אפשר יהיה תקציב למדינה.
אז לוקח אותנו לשאלה השנייה, האם צריך להעביר את התקציב ולמה?
כן, חשוב מאוד להעביר את התקציב באופן אפילו מיידי, מפני שבינתיים המדינה או הממשלה מוציאה כספים מבלי תכנון ומבלי ועדת הכספים בכנסת, ולכן העברת הכספים מתבצעת באופן לא, חלוקת הכספים מתבצעת באופן לא מדעי ולא מבוסס נתונים.
Social media had this to say. Malka Fleischer asks, will our children have to repeat a grade? Kathy says, wow, I can't for the life of me understand how we're even talking about opening schools right now. Avi says that this is the one time I would like to see an Israeli teacher strike as well. Reg says Zionists created Israel in their own image, and that is why it is such a horrid place. It is not Jewish, but a cruel Zionist one.
Yeah, it's a big issue because right now what we're seeing is that the Israeli parliament, the Knesset, is supposed to represent the Israeli public. They couldn't even come up with a financial package for the education system. Although the system is on the verge of collapse in many areas, there are not enough teachers. They won't even give teachers the right to sick day of leaves if they get COVID. So the situation is very dire, and the Israeli parliament didn't pass a resolution that gave emergency funding. There's no budget for 2020. The last budget is from a year ago. So, in fact, the situation is very bad because the government seems to be living in a different reality, and they're oblivious to the concerns of the youth of the country.
One in every 3 children starting school this year across Israel is facing poverty, the latest Israeli humanitarian aid published in a report earlier in September. Lated said 52,830 Israeli first graders are suffering from poverty. The study found that 36% of parents confess that their children are skipping meals to help parents survive financially. Moreover, 26% say their children are sent to school without a packed lunch or a sandwich. Some 69% acknowledge that their children lack basic school books, and 75% think they won't be able to afford all the fees the school requires. Lated anticipates the economic crisis hit Israel so hard that it will eventually lead to hundreds of thousands of children dropping out of school to help their parents make ends meet. Poverty isn't just learning on an empty stomach, using a cheap second-hand copy or out-of-date textbook. It also means lacking computers or high-speed internet. The Education Ministry vowed to purchase computers to ensure that schools will be able to lend laptops to children who don't have one at home. The ministry also promised to install 1 computer and 1 projector in each class to ensure access to digital curricula now being created. However, all those things take time, and the school year has already started.
It's important to note that the majority of the students and of the families who cannot basically connect with their educational system are Arabs. Our estimation is that there are at least 150,000 Arab students who cannot learn remotely. Many of them live in the southern area of Israel. They live in localities that the Israeli authorities does not recognize their existence. So, and that's why the Israeli authorities don't provide them with the needed infrastructures and with the needed tool basically to run the educational system. So it's a question of a clear ethnic discrimination. It's a question of a clear ethnic exclusion of Arab students. And our community, the Arab community in Israel, is basically paying a very heavy price for this discrimination. No strategic plans are presented. No financial protection is provided for citizens, and the future seems to be very gloomy. So, in fact, instead of leading the efforts to face basically the financial crisis and to approve the budget and to continue ahead with the financial plans to support the citizens, people are witnessing some kind of chaos, and there is no actual leadership in this government to basically to face the current crisis. So this is a new situation. And I believe that people will continue to go out and to demonstrate. We have witnessing also serious violence on the part of policemen against demonstrators. The Israeli government has also enacted a law that prohibits prohibits demonstrations with the idea to try to prevent demonstrations in front of Netanyahu house. And I think this is a clear attack on basic freedoms and basic rights of Israeli citizens, and this is also part of the reason for this outcry and protest that we are witnessing all over the country.
דוח חדש של לתת, ארגון לתת, מצביע על העוני בקרב ילדים. מה על הרשויות לעשות כדי לעזור לילדים?
תראה, עניין העוני הוא עניין שאנחנו סובלים ממנו עשרות שנים. על המדינה להנהיג תוכנית רב-שנתית שבמסגרתה תוכל למגר את תופעת העוני ואת התופעה שהתגלגלה לפתחנו מזה עשורים, בעיקר אצל אוכלוסיות מוחלשות כמו האוכלוסייה הערבית והאוכלוסייה החרדית.
האם אתה חושב שנכון למורים לשבות עם תחילת שנת הלימודים החדשה?
תראה, עניין ההשבתה של בתי ספר ושביתת מורים או השבתת עניין הלימודים זה ממש עניין לא אחראי. בוודאי שאנחנו עוברים תקופת משבר, כולנו צריכים להתלכד ולהיות ביחד, כולנו צריכים להתגייס על מנת לקדם את עניינם של התלמידים, שבסופו של יום קידום עניינם של התלמידים זה יכול להועיל ולקדם את החברה ככלל.
דוח חדש של לתת מצביע על העוני בקרב ילדים. מה על הרשויות לעשות כדי לעזור לילדים?
בעיית העוני בישראל היא בעיה מאוד רצינית. יש בישראל למעלה מ1.5 מיליון אנשים שחיים מתחת לקו העוני, במיוחד ילדים, ולכן על הרשויות לדאוג לתקצב פרויקטים לעזרה לילדים ולמשפחות שלהם העניים, אם זה בתחום הדיור, אם זה בתחום חינוך, ביגוד, השכלה וכו'. אז כן, חשוב לדאוג לעניין הזה של הילדים העניים ובני משפחותיהם.
Online, this was heavily criticized. According to Showcat, the so-called greatest and only democracy in the Middle East doesn't care for its poor. My heart goes out for the poor. Thousands of Israeli kids expected to drop out of school over poverty. Quality Smokes adds, breaking news, millions of Palestinian children have no access to schools, safety, or a future with any prospect of happiness. Safta says, this is so bad. Our children are the future of Israel. They deserve a fighting chance. Children shouldn't go to bed hungry. This situation is a stain on Israel. Alexandra says, what if all the aid to warmongering Netanyahu and Israel was spent on kids in poverty?
I'm a musician and I've been not working for the past 6 months. I've been working very little, couldn't conduct my choirs, could hardly teach any voice students, not talking about the fact that I couldn't perform as a singer and a choral conductor. And when we think about the reasons for the lockdown, the second lockdown that we're experiencing, we can't find a proper reason for why we're locked down, why businesses are closed, and why do people don't feel any hope in the future. And we need a change.
These numbers are not extreme for a third world country. But what is puzzling about Israel is the fact that this country regards itself as a rich and developed country. What we see again is a society that is breaking to its elements, a society that doesn't respect itself, a society that is careless of its poor, and it shouldn't take anyone by surprise.
Israel has another problem. To pull off its plan to reopen schools safely at all, Israel needs to hire 15,000 new teachers. Among the looming challenges, some Israeli educators, including new teachers, are ill-equipped to handle the job at a particularly difficult time. Teachers do not want to return to schools because of the outbreak. This means even after the lockdown too. In fact, thousands of teachers have gone on strike, and many more threaten to strike over the failure to agree upon a solution for high-risk staff members. This while the National Parents Union has said it would tell parents not to send their children to school for the foreseeable future. The union cites lack of preparedness for teaching during the coronavirus pandemic. The union is demanding full sick pay for those unable to work due to the pandemic. The Israeli Treasury is proposing furloughing such staff members or allowing them to retire. Here is the news making the press in Israel. The Jerusalem Post. A new report says that the Israeli regime has given the green light to military intelligence to receive information on civilians. The approval, a general permit for information disclosure, will allow the Military Intelligence Directorate to receive any information that the tax authority may have on every single citizen and for any purpose, according to the report. I-24 News. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, or the OECD, has urged Israel to immediately adopt a series of financial measures as its economy continues to spiral downward due to the coronavirus epidemic. The OECD suggestions included financial support for struggling businesses, improve education, stimulate competition, and help Israelis find employment in order to stem its economic decline. Ynet News. The Knesset, or Israeli Parliament, has passed the first reading of a bill to tighten coronavirus restrictions, which cracks down on public protests. The bill also targets public prayers. Israel is already under a less stringent closure that came into effect recently, which saw limits placed on commerce, social gatherings, and cultural events in an effort to reduce the number of daily coronavirus infections that in recent days has hovered around an alarming 8,000 mark. Arutz Sheva. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has developed a reputation among the staff at the U.S. President's guest house for bringing special cargo on his trips to Washington. Bags and suitcases full of dirty laundry. The clothes are cleaned for the Prime Minister free of charge by the U.S. staff.